Going to have a demonstration on the use and abuse of the Skew. Dick really doesn't need much of an introduction. We all know him, and it's all yours.
The tool everybody loves to hate. I was the same way when I first started out. You know, I used it as a scraper, which I'm sure a lot of people do. Once you understand it, you don't want to be without it. How do you understand a problem? You spend a lot of time with it. When I first started using the Skew, it frustrated me. And I'm German, and most people who are German are noted for being bullheaded. I was doing an art show and I was making door stops. So door stops were very simple, with just a 2x2 or 1.5 square. I'd turn a knob on each end and cut it off at an angle, and you got 2 door stops. Well, I put it in my mind that I was going to turn those door stops with a Skew. And I did. I ruined a lot. I had a lot of them with 1 door stop out of 2 and things like that. But it also taught me how to handle that Skew. Now, if I can give you one thing about a Skew that will maybe help you more than anything, that you can't just force a knife through something. You have to slice with it to be proficient. Skew is the same way. So is every other tool except the scraper. But your gouges, everything are all slicing tools. It's just put into the position. And if you think I'm joking, if you take this and turn it into a U shape, you got a gouge. And again, it's still going to work the same way. If you try and push it in, it's not going to cut. But if you slice with it, it's going to do wonders for you. I'll go through a few of them first. I've got quite an array of them here. These are your normal ones that you would find. Which one do I use all the time? That one. If I was doing a newel post or something that was pretty large in diameter and you had a lot of length to it, I'd definitely go for that one. Medium stuff, you know, spindles and that, you may want to go with that, but I guess I've just become accustomed to this one. And I do mean accustomed. I think everybody picks up a favorite tool, and it's their favorite tool because they use it the most. Used to fish with a buddy, and he had one lure that he was so dead set was going to catch his fish, and he says that lure is the best one I've ever had. He says it'll catch fish anytime. I says, Mike, that's the only lure you use. And it was the truth. But he had the confidence in that one, and you develop a confidence, I believe, with some tools, period. I've got a multitude of tools, and I had to dig some of these out of boxes just to bring them along. Now there's always the argument, do we have a straight edge, do we have a curved edge? Raffin is the guy that started the curved edge. Is one better than another? I wouldn't want to really live on the difference between the two of them. If I would say there's one place that I like this better, is in a cove. I feel I can slip through a cove easier with the curved one than I can with the straight one. Do I use the straight one? Not really. I've become accustomed to the curved one, so I stay with that. that doesn't mean that in my learning periods, I didn't try something else.
Is that a wood chisel?
It's just square straight across and it works great. I used to use it on pens all the time. So, I mean, there's anything, if it cuts, you learn how to use it, it's fine. The radius or the oval skews, I don't like them. As you can tell, that's got about a full length to it, and I've had it for many years. The two things I don't care about. One, it's a dog to sharpen. To get it sharpened the first time, from there on you can use a stone, but getting it where you have a good uniform side-to-side grind, that takes a little bit of doing. And the second, I don't think there's enough beef in that. I don't really have a problem with it, but it just doesn't feel right to me. And again, that goes back to how I handle things. Well, let's start a little turning first. Pushing it a little bit. What I've got in there is a cup center, and I rarely use a 4-prong drive. I just don't like them. If I'm teaching somebody, the first thing that they do is kind of back up. You know, they're afraid that that's going to crack and chip. I'm sure everybody's seen one of those things, don't do this, and shows the part flying over his head. Okay, the neat thing about this, you get a catch, hey, the only thing you want to do is you got to have a little extra pressure to drive it. Or a little more speed. Yes, but nothing says I can't use the heel. There are no real rules using one of these things. There's a reason that the point's longer than the heel. If you're rolling beads, I don't roll it with the heel because I can't see it. With the long point, you can see it. What difference if you go, with the long point down? Now, when I normally do this, when I hit the end, I just reverse myself and come back on across. Now, did you hear that chattering a little bit? I lost the bevel. Did it on purpose so you could hear that. But go back and pick it up and you're right fine back in the same area again. How do you start a skew? You lay it up there and bring it back so that can you see where the dust is hitting here? Right on that corner?
Can you focus down?
Manually. Let's see here. There's technology.
Let me explain one other thing to you first. When you lay this on your piece, you've got a few options of how you present that cut. I'm laying on the leading edge on the bottom here as you go across. Okay, that gives me a chance to turn this way and this way. And how do you understand that? It comes through practice and feel. If you're going to be white-knuckled and a bear with this thing, it's going to teach you all kinds of new tricks. To start it, what you do is, I normally bring it down. I know where it's going to be. Now, can you see the heel touching? Now, if I keep going, it's going to fuzz. See what I'm saying? The heel is driving it instead of cutting it. Now, if I bring it up a little bit, now I don't have that problem, and you can see where I'm cutting is right in here. Now, did you hear that make a little jump there? There was a nick in here and it caught. From when I was playing before, yes, folks.
Can you talk a little bit about how high you have your tool rest when you're using the skew?
Okay, actually I'm above center line. And probably my height has more to do with that than anything else. I get sometimes when I'm demonstrating, I have a lathe that's real low, and I sometimes work clean up in here with the tool rest high. But the tool rest should be where you are comfortable in relation to the size of the piece you got. And I don't know what else I can say about that. Everybody thinks that you're supposed to line that up at dead center. I disagree with that. That's a good starting point. From there, you want to go where you're comfortable when you're standing there. You know, if you're like this, get that up there. Whatever. Make it where you can stand there and be comfortable, where you're at leisure with your arms and stuff. If you have to fight it, change it. That's simple. Yes?
Do you usually just stone the tip then, or do you grind?
I grind my tools on my grinder, and then flop that down the other direction.
Back toward you.
Okay, can you see the shiny part here and here?
Yeah.
Okay, I take a diamond hone and I go across that. I bridge the hollow. So all I'm hitting is the back of the bevel and the cutting edge. Now I just stay on that and sharpen it, flip it over and sharpen it the other way. Goes fast because all you're touching is there and here. Now, if you use your skew a lot, pretty soon this is going to start getting pretty close to the tip. Go back and re-hollow grind it. It makes it much easier and faster to sharpen, and you're done.
Are you sharpening for a burr, or when you?
No, what you're looking for is get this thing sharp.
Can we see that once more?
Looks like you've done it a lot, Paul.
Yeah, I slipped that one time.
No, I want it as sharp as I can get it. I can normally take it on a piece of like notebook paper and just drag it across and it'll part.
Right.
Are you sharpening freehand, or are you using
Beg pardon?
Are you sharpening freehand, or are you using
Yes.
a Wolverine?
No, I just use the table or the rests on my grinder, and I just set it at the angles. My grinders I have set, I have one side set for skews and gouges, and I have the other one set for scrapers. And I rarely change them. That's probably real close to 25 degrees. My gouges, my spindle gouges are at 25 degrees. My bowl gouges, we're talking a whole different story now. But I can walk up to my grinder and sharpen that in no time and hone it, and I'm back on the road. Yes?
Since that front bevel is so small, that's what you're rubbing, does the tool get hot for you while you're rubbing that bevel?
You mean on the work?
Yeah.
Only if you force down on it so hard that you make it hot. You create friction. But no, you should not have a problem getting it hot.
And one other off-the-wall question, if the grain of that wood was 90 degrees, could you make it work? Or it's not? It's only gonna work when the grain is straight this way?
It all depends. You know, like you can do a pen blank that has wild grain in it, and you want to pay attention to it when you go through it. But you can cut anything you want really with it. You're liable to, if you got like on a 45, when half the blank is going to be against the grain. You can cut it, but I mean you have to be aware of it. Anybody ever done the diamond wood blanks that are cut on an angle? They're real dogs until you get to where you think. Normally I don't use a skew on those. I take and go with a gouge and do a shear cut on them.
I had a piece of zebra wood where it was not 45, but it was like this.
Mhm.
And it would just splinter every time you touched the wood.
Well, there again you might want to take and do a shear cut with a gouge instead. When you're cutting, let me get a pencil here. When you're cutting along, say I'm going in the right direction towards the rear of the lathe here, I can cut anywhere from the heel to roughly halfway on the skew. When I start getting over in this area, then you're starting to get into the trailing edge, which is the killer. That's the one that's always going to get you. The leading edge, you saw me fuzz it up. It is not going to bother at all. But if you bring that trailing edge over there, that's what's going to happen. It's going to bury itself right in. You bring it around and catch, bang, there you've got a catch. Now, if I'm coming this way, it don't matter. But if I drop it down, that edge is going to catch. So it's always your trailing edge. So any time you do one of these, you're usable going to the heel end, roughly half of it. If you're going the other way, half of it again, only the leading edge. Everybody understand what I'm saying? Now, to maintain this, it's the rotation of the tool. That's what keeps you in that half of that distance. Now, the other half of it is just like that pocket knife. Wherever you get that to where it cuts properly, there you go. Look at that. Who said you need a lot of speed? Now, like I was talking before about that pocket knife, if I take and come in straight, I really don't do anything. Come in at a shear cut, and you cut right off. And to get that, you have to swing the tool to find it, and you have to rotate the tool on that piece to take and find that area that you want to stay with.
You break the edges of the tool, don't you?
I mean here?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every one I have, I've done that too.
Grind?
Normally I take a diamond or a stone and do it. I don't like to run a grinder on it, it's too rough. You know, I don't like a big radius on them, but I want something that my hands roll on and nothing digs into my tool rest. As long as we're talking, just that tool rest right there. It's cast iron. I don't think there's anything quite like cast iron for a tool rest. Steel will vibrate. And the lighter touch you have, the more it becomes. It becomes a problem just by your lightness. Everything just sets up a harmonic vibration on it. Another thing I don't like in a tool rest is the round bars. By the time you put it up to the wood, you're still 3/8 of an inch or better away from your work area. This one, I go right up against it. One other little tip. You want to keep that straight. You know, and there's a lot of times you're trying to make something nice and straight and parallel. When you put that tool rest up here, look down at your lathe. Line it up with your lathe so it's straight. When you come along with that, you kind of follow your tool rest and it'll just take and keep everything going in a straight line. If you're off on an angle, then you have to compensate all the way down for everything you're doing there. It just doesn't work very good.
Do you lubricate the cast iron at all? With oil or wax or anything?
What's that?
Do you lubricate that cast iron tool rest at all with
No.
wax or anything?
But I do make sure it's clean. Before I came tonight, I did that to it. It's clean. If there's glue on it, whatever, it'll show up. You'll hit that and it'll stop you. You don't want any nicks in there, you don't want glue on it, you want it clean. Now, if I wanted to take and move wood in a hurry with one of these things, the easiest way to move a lot of wood is you just bring it back. I'm going straight at it. When it catches, now I'm not just shoving it in. As it's coming down, it's going in and coming down at the same time. In other words, I'm keeping my cutting edge right on the top of the, see where it's starting to cut? Now, if I just go straight in, I run out. If I drop it, I run out. If I take and follow it, I go all the way down and I cut clean. That's called a paring cut. What they do when in veneer mills. Does quite a nice job. Move a lot of material in a hurry with it. Now we've got an edge on here. How do you clean that up? With one of these. What I'll do is I'll take my bevel and I line it up. Which you can see my tool is not straight, but my bevel is straight. Again, I go up and start high and just follow it down. I know of nothing that will cut that end grain any smoother or cleaner than that.
I I couldn't see whether it was point up or point down.
Point down.
On that
I'm
last.
using a long one.
Okay.
You could, again, do the same with the short one. My problem is I can't see it. That's the whole bad thing about that short one. It'll do anything you want. Probably if I stood here for 20 minutes and just kept making cuts. Number 2 is better than the first. But if I flip that over where I can see what I'm doing, got a nice square corner, sharp. Rolling a bead. Everybody like rolling beads with Skews?
If you like them smaller than you meant to, yeah.
Well, I don't really care to roll beads with a Skew. I can do it. If I am doing a lot of them, I prefer to use my spindle gouge. But I do know how to roll beads with them. And I think the main thing that most people fail at is understanding how it really works. Number 1, most people think that you start out in the middle, like I showed you, the area that you worked with, right? That's where you roll that bead over in the middle of that tool. Very few people that I know of have the ability to do that. It makes a very nice bead, but it's so easy to lose it and make that catch. What you want to do is use the tip. That's what it all boils down to. I'm using a bead cut right there to take and make a little room for myself. Okay, also, I don't know of anybody that is good enough, maybe Raffin, but he uses the gouge when he does that. I just seen him go up a bowl. But with the Skew, it's one of those things you kind of want to sneak up on. Take a little off. You can't take it all at once. Well, someone will prove me wrong somewhere down the line, but the majority of people, you're much better off taking a few bites out of it. Everybody understand what I'm saying there? Okay. If there's one thing I'm going to tell you right now, listen to me real close. Not only with this, but with gouges also. If I take and go down here, which I'm doing fine, right? Okay, let me do that again. The reason that I'm cutting, I'm going in and forward. I'm keeping pressure going forward. In other words, I'll call that forward. Now, the minute that I go and quit going forward and try and go down, I reverse back to the trailing edge. Just that fast. The minute you stop your pressure of the forward movement and still continue cutting, you're going to take and go back to the edge that's going to catch, and out it comes.
Because we've never seen it.
when you do, well, that was not too bad, pretty good one. When you take a look at that, if you really chase it back, you can see where it caught and just ran it on back. And the whole thing of it is, well, let me clean that up a little bit. Okay, now if I go in here and start to cut, and when I get to here, let's say I quit pushing forward and continue down. Now, do you see how that's digging? Can you see that it all dig in? I mean, it just, the minute you quit pushing forward and continue, you catch that edge, not the edge, but the cutting edge, and it just runs it right back on you. So you always have to keep forward pressure on that tool. I mean, hey, that's not only with this, with the gouge. I think that's another place where a lot of people get problems. Okay, another problem that evolves. When I come down into here, I want to take and get my tool stood up. Won't cut anymore. I can safely take it out. If I come over on here and get down to the bottom and try to pull it out, it runs on me. It does the same thing that I just showed you. So when you get to the bottom of where you want to be, see where that tool is? It won't cut anymore. Same with the gouge. Now I really mean you have to learn that kind of stuff. You got to pay attention, and once you get to understanding it, it becomes second nature to you. I was going out to Boise, Idaho, and I stopped at Craft Supplies, and a guy by the name of Ray Jones was giving a one-day demo. So I took it. He grabs a 3/8 square, well, it was a beading tool or whatever the hell it was, and sharpens it up like a skew. Makes a very, very nice beading tool. Number one, there's a lot of strength to it. It rolls around on that very nice. Does everything you want it to. If you take a look at the turning radius of this would be a nice for a real small bead. Now look at the turning radius of this. Much bigger. It just makes it easier to roll that bead over. So if you were turning a bead roughly that size, this would probably be the better bet of the tools. Now, I did a little bit of a V cut, and I don't know if anybody really paid attention, but let's say that we want to put a V cut right there. Okay, what I'm going to do is come on this side. I'm paying attention to my cutting edge. As you can see, my tool is off at an angle. If I put it this straight in, it won't cut. All you do is mark it. So you want to look at where your bevel is at, make that cut, make that cut, make that cut. Now, there's a reason you go back and forth. It's like using an axe. If I kept going, I'm getting nowhere. If you keep hitting in the same spot with that axe, you don't go anywhere. You got to get some of that material out and give that axe room to move. Same with this. Now, if you wanted a different angle on this, you just set whatever you want on that cutting edge. Now, I don't know if you're watching, but watch the back end of that handle. I'm shooting right for the center of that tool, or that piece of wood. That's my goal. No matter where I start, and I'm starting high, I'm way above center line here. But when I finish up here, I'm aimed right at the center line. And one of the other things that I see an awful lot of people do, and I was guilty of it myself. Say you were making a planing cut. Okay, it's cutting. Let's get it going. We're not going to lose it. No, that's wrong. When you get that cut moving, take your time. Now hear how it's rattling a little bit? That's because of my last cut. Let me get it straightened out, and I'll take a clean cut. You don't have to be in a hurry. Now that was right in the point. You could see a little bit of it was fuzzing up. But it was taking and cutting really nice. So I didn't care about the fuzz. Now let's change the angle a little bit. Now I brought it this way so that I presented a straighter cut at it. Now, everything that's coming off is different. Let me go back to my paring cut like I would do with a knife. Everything even sounds better. It's clean. Anybody get vibration? If I'm doing a long piece, if I can, I've got a chuck on here, and I hold the end in a chuck rather than between centers. That means I can loosen this up. I can't loosen it up now because I'm driving it. Okay, now I don't have a problem with this size piece, but if I went down to something thin and relatively long, the pressure has a tendency to bow that. Now you start having vibration problems. Common thing that I see people do again is when it starts to vibrate, you see them get on it even harder. That's the worst thing. When it starts to vibrate, it's hard to make yourself do it, but back off. If you need that much pressure to cut that, go to the grinder and sharpen the damn tool. You don't need it. You don't need pressure. Now, that was I was just showing you that I don't have a lot of pressure on that. The reason it was jumping, naturally, I shouldn't be doing that in the first place. But we'll go back and do it again. Now, I'm going to pull pressure on the tool rest. Don't hold the pressure on the wood. You need pressure enough to cut. But all your pressure to keep from vibrating and everything comes off of that tool rest. That's why I like a cast iron tool rest. It dampens all those vibrations. Now, I'm going to throw another thing at you. I think Sorby calls it a Stairmaster. This is a Hamlet, it's a Tommy Sorensen tool. It's a very good tool. You can do, it just works like a gouge, really. Is it foolproof? But I find a lot of people have more or better luck with this than they do with the regular Skew. Which do I like? I prefer the Skew. Although I had it in my hand the other day. I was turning a hollow form, and it had some real figure in it, and it was tearing on me. So I used that, and it cut it clean. So I don't care what you do, there's always a use for some of these tools. That's the reason I tell my wife anyway when I go by.
So if you take anything away from this demo,
Somebody asked me how many lathes I have. I have 5 lathes. I've got a Carbotech that kind of I kept for my grandkids, and that just sits there. They're not interested. I have a 100 Vic Mark that I do pens. I've had it a while. Its serial number is 10. I have a 200 or a long Vic Mark 16-incher, and I have a short bed 300 Vic Mark, and I have a Harrison. Well, back when I first met Cindy, I mean like the first week or two, I was telling her I was wanting to buy a lathe. So she says, why don't you? I said, they cost a lot of money. She says, well, do you have the money? And I said, yes. She says, what are you going to do with the lathe? And I said, I'm going to turn bolts. She says, what are you going to do with the bolts? I said, I'm going to sell them, or I hope to. She says, isn't it kind of stupid not to spend some money to make some money? So I bought the lathe, and then shortly after that, a few years, I married her.
I was gonna say, where's your meter?
It took me a while, but I got a phone call one day, and I got a deal on a 300 Vic Mark. So I says, well, I'm going to buy it. So I bought it. I was telling Cindy, I says, I'm going to take and sell that Harrison. She says, you like that lathe? I said, yep. She says, it's paid for. I says, yeah. She says, but you like it. I said, yeah. She says, why don't you keep it? Now, how do you argue with a woman?
she's right, she's right.
Happy wife, happy life.
She's gotta keep her.
Somebody was gonna say
You did notice how pretty she was eventually, right?
Now, right off the bat. You notice that it bridged right over it. Okay, that's really not the one to make a cove that size. If I take my everyday one, that should be able to make it in here. I'm right on the verge. When I do ornaments and stuff, and I have small coves, I've got a little 3/8 skew. And then just slides right through it. The right tool for the right job. I've tried all kinds of things. That's even a kind of a nice little tool, other than the fact it's oval, but what's nice about it, if you're doing pens or something, it's nothing. It's right there in your hand. It's just, why not? Why have a big one sticking out if you don't need it? Now, somebody's got to have a question.
When you were cutting with the one just now, were you moving what was cutting the wood, or were you staying like right here?
On a cove, you
Or were you
you
sliding
just
a little
about,
bit?
you change your cut where it's at. I'm sure if I sat there and really tried, what I believe what you're asking me is, did I cut right here or did I change?
Right, yeah.
Yes, I'm sure I changed.
Okay.
And that's the nice thing I like about this radius. Going down into that cove, I could change it and still keep my edges away.
You told me heel off of.
Right. If you go down there with a straight one, it would, well, I'm right in the middle, but you still are going to have to take and change. I don't care what you do there, unless you're so good at it, but I'm not. But well, let me go slow here once. Can you see on there? Okay. Now I'm going to start just about at the tip. Now as I bring the handle up and I roll the tool over a little bit, now you see I'm halfway across that tool. Now I'm back down on the bottom. So I went from here up to here and halfway back again, going down into that. Okay, who else got? Yes.
Hey Dick, on your radius, are you using the first 25% is straight and then the radius cut, or are you going a complete radius from the
No.
toe to the heel?
It's so close to being a radius, but what he's saying is Raffin has the first 1/8 of an inch flat. And then it goes into the radius. Mine's close, but it's not. I don't grind it that way. Everything works for me, so I grew up in the Ike era. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yes.
Dick, I noticed that the bevel is very shiny on your skews. What grit wheel do you use when you sharpen your skews?
I think I've got an 80 on that one. It could not. I don't think it's 100 on that one.
1750 RPM?
Pardon?
1750 RPM?
1800. Yeah. It don't matter. But back to what you said. Yes, I kind of am proud of my bevels. Now, when I grind, I'm light-handed with my grinding. In other words, you don't want to grind a tool away. You want to grind it to the shape and then sharpen from then on. But when I do make my moves, when I'm done, you can just about grab hold of that tool and walk away, because it's not hot. And that's what makes them look nice, is because I'm taking a slow, fine grind on it. If I go in there and make a real heavy grind, you get a serrated edge on that thing. You don't need that. You're going to stone it and get it sharp to begin with. So.
You started out a machinist, didn't you?
Pardon?
I said you started out a machinist, didn't you?
Yes, it did. And I was a tool and die maker. What's,
When you're making a straight cylinder, that front bevel is rubbing, is the back bevel also rubbing?
no. They'll never rub at the same time. If they do, it's because they're digging into the wood. Yes.
I was just agreeing with you, tool and die maker.
No, you'll never get them both. The closest you'll ever come to doing that will be a paring cut. I did it. Both of them were cutting, but I was doing a peeling cut versus a regular cut. In a regular cut, there's no way you can do that.
You already covered that when you said you would only be in that, call it bottom half, whichever.
What was that, Darryl?
You'd only be cutting in half of the
Right.
width, so
Exactly.
you never get to the other one without
No.
being enriched.
Yes, Al?
If you're doing like a bowl or a platter or something, and you want to put a groove in the bottom, and the problem that I have when I'm doing something like that, no matter what I do, the thing just skips on me. So am I taking the wrong angle at it?
You're using one of these?
Is that's the problem?
No, I wouldn't say,
If I wanted
but
like a really fine groove in it, where
I understand what you're saying. Probably, if I was just guessing, to do it on a faceplate and not have it good, you would have to be just about dead center at center line. If you were high, you're going to be doing this with it.
that's what's happening.
And if it's low, it's going to push it the other way. So it would have to go in right at center line.
But then you can only go in so far.
No. You could move over and come in. You could come both ways on it. But you're going to have to be at center line.
When you're using that to make your bead on the bottom, which you do?
Do I use this?
Yes.
No.
Well, were you cutting above center line when you were doing that bead?
I would say you probably could, but why would you? If I had a bowl that close to being done, I'm not about to play around and try to experiment.
I didn't use that. I'm just saying, when you're cutting your beads.
The V, yeah. You saying V or bead?
Bead on the faceplate.
I would hesitate. Like Ellen is saying, just to put a line in it. This way, no problem. You're scraping with the point, but he's talking about putting a very fine, delicate line. Then he could go in and use that. But it's got to be right at center line.
Otherwise you chip out one side or the other. That's
Pardon?
what otherwise, I guess you chip out.
No, if he's,
If it's off a little bit, it'll skip.
Yeah.
if he brought this above center line, he's going to be catching here and wanting to do that. That's where you're running it. But it'd have to be right at center line. And center line and the tool straight.
Straight parallel to the lathe.
Yeah. And then you know what happens? It won't cut.
Oh, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Use a bigger skew.
Remember when I took it and I was jamming this thing in? Okay, it's 90 degrees. It's like you hit it with an axe the first time. It ain't going anywhere because it won't cut. All it'll do is mark it. Who else has got anything?
Just on that spindle master, how do you sharpen that?
You could use like a Wolverine jig.
Like, if you could just say, like, hold it, like to the hand wheel,
Pretend like there's a grinding wheel in front of you.
pretend like
say-
that's the grinding wheel. Could you
Okay, I've got
hold that up to
the
it?
Wolverine jig on it, and it just,
That's how you're doing, okay.
I've got my own jig, but I don't
Yeah.
use a Wolverine, but.
All right.
I was at a Sorby demo where the Sorby representative addressed this question, and he said, if you buy this tool, don't ever touch the bevel portion, because at the factory, they hone it to 400. He says the way you're supposed to sharpen it is to sharpen the flat part and use a progressively finer diamond hone or whatever you want to use. You could use sandpaper on a granite block, and you can get it down to 1200 if you want. But he said the way to sharpen it is to go after the flat surface. Do not go after that bevel surface.
I chipped it right here.
Oh, okay,
Then you got it.
then you got a problem.
Yeah, and then he said, the only way that, he said if we were in England, I could send it to the factory, but there wasn't anybody here that could resharpen it, so I've just tried a couple different ways to.
Okay, now, I disagree with them. The main reason, let's say that you're sharpening here. Pretty soon, you're wearing that down because you're only sharpening a little bit. And don't tell me everybody's gonna lay that long tool on here and keep it parallel and work this all down. They're gonna change that angle. Not gonna be much here, but between this angle and that angle, it's gonna change. Do you become accustomed to it? I'm sure you would. But Clive, he's a nice guy. That's who you're referring to, right?
I don't know his name, but that was what he said.
But don't you find that spindle master stays sharper longer than a traditional skew?
No?
It does if you don't use it.
Well, mine does. Mine does. This one stays sharper much longer than my skew.
That's what I was.
Because it's in the drawer. I don't use it that much. But between the two of them, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference there. Probably if your skew is going dull on you, it's probably because you're using too much of this and writing things too hard. I can't stress enough how you want to be light-handed using all your tools. Now, you don't want to take and disrespect these things, because they all will catch you, they all will hurt you, they will all do kinds of things. But if you're standing there with a white knuckle grip and you get a catch, for every action there's a reaction of the same strength. So if you're knuckled down on that, you're going to have some real blowouts. Now, when you saw me make a catch here, you didn't see it go far. It didn't have much pressure on it, very little. And the same goes with when you're working. If you get yourself accustomed to the fact that you want to keep that tool cutting, and it is cutting, relax with it. And I know everybody looks at me and say, yeah, you've been doing it a long time, but somewhere down the line you have to learn how to relax with it. And if you do, if you also notice, I've always got a finger on the tool. I'd like to say it's because I point my finger and that's where the tool goes, but that's really not the thing. The thing is, I feel what the tool is doing with my finger on there. I could feel when I ran across things here. And I do that constantly. Now, also, English turners. I like to have this. Maybe I'm lazy, but I have so much less movement versus, you know, your whole body's making a move. Now, Alan Batty does tremendous with his tools, and he's another one that's out here all the time with on the ends. I have no problem with it. That's the way he learned. That's the way he became comfortable with it. Like I said, I guess I'm lazy and I don't want all the movement. Yes?
When you do sharpen the skew on the grinder, do you do both sides?
Yes, sir. I'm even kind of finicky. I kind of like to keep them uniform, side to side. Probably wouldn't make a whole lot of difference, but it's just the way I was. When I was an apprentice, you were taught to do this and that, and it has never rubbed off. I use a micrometer to measure on a lathe. It's been in my hand since 1960, and it's kind of grown in there between the calluses. It's just an easy way to measure, fast way, and an accurate way. But that's the way I was taught.
Dick, do you switch hands, left, right, right, left?
Only when I'm teaching and there's someone standing here and I go over here. I can turn left-handed. I'm not as proficient at it by no means as I am right. And why would I take and do something that I really am uncomfortable with? We'll get on the soapbox a little bit. I hate the advertisements in the magazines or the catalogs that says, buy this tool. It's so much faster. You can do this so much quicker, so much faster. You can do so many more bowls, whatever. Who cares? How many of you people make a living at wood turning? It's a hobby. It's something, it may turn into a business for you. It did for me. But enjoy what you're doing, number one. If you have to fight it, you're not going to do it. You're going to find a reason to watch NCIS instead of going down and doing some turning. If you do become real proficient, speed is going to come with your knowledge of how you handle things. I'm not a fast turner. A lot of people say I am, but I mean, when I'm at home and I'm doing, say, that bowl, I can move a lot of wood on, but I would prefer to have a nice, clean cut, everything the way I like it, versus worrying about if I'm spending an extra hour on it. And again, who cares how much time you spend unless you've got a job doing something with it? Then it, you know, like somebody goes to the work with one of their pens and somebody says, boy, that's nice, how much? $20. Didn't take me long at all. I'll take 100 of them. At the end of that 100, you've learned a lesson. It takes longer than you think, but there is a time when you learn how to start cutting.
Don't take the pens to work.
Twice is better.
Did you stop going to work as a machinist and start doing turning? Did you stop being a machinist earlier than you would have if there weren't turning?
No.
So you took that to the end and then
Turning was a hobby of mine to begin with. I started turning, what year were you born?
63.
63. Well, I bought my first lathe in 65. But
What's your AAW number?
I don't know, 2280 or something. Although I was at the first one. But anyway, the metal lathe screwed me up for years. It really did. All I knew of a metal, there was back then there was no magazines, there was no DVDs. Occasionally I found an article and somebody, all they did is scraped. There was nothing, period. So you went and learned by yourself. I used the same setups and everything I did on a metal lathe. Right dead center, everything became a scrape, period. I became proficient at scraping. I did it for years, and the only tool that I learned how to use out of a book was that Skew. I have a book at home, I think it was written in 71 or something like that by a guy by the name of Payne. And I was reading on the Skew, and he told me, he said, you lay that up here and you drag it back and go forward. I says, man, that guy's crazy, he'd kill himself, you know. I opened that book up again, I reread it, got the same idea. You know, I did that 3 times. I finally laid the book down, went downstairs and did what he told me, and you know what? It rolled a shaving on. And all of a sudden, things started clicking in my head. You gotta cut. You can't scrape. Went out to BYU in 1985 or 6. First time I ever saw a man on a lathe. First guy that stepped up was a fellow by the name of Richard Raffin. Had a chunk, well, maybe a little bigger than that, about that long, stuck in a chuck with no tailstock. And then I looked at the guy and I said, man, he can't scrape like that. You know, it's gonna tear things out. So, well, grabs the Skew, walks up, turns the lathe on, goes, vroom. Pieces kind of flew, you know, and I said, man, that guy, I thought he was a woodturner. Well, he 45'd that thing in one shot. So he's up there playing around with the Skew, and he comes up, and he's got a top in his hand. He goes, vroom. Comes up, he's got a top in his hand. And the first one was still spinning. I had brought some pictures of my work, which never came out of the motel room. My tail beat me back to Illinois, and I learned one thing: you have to learn how to cut. And I mean, if you're gonna scrape all your life, the only time I scrape is if I take and do a hollow form, or I've got a spot that I can't get in any other way. Tendons, I still cut with a Skew. Not necessarily a normal cut. I'll go in and make a paring cut. But you cut. Until you learn how to cut, you're never going to go anywhere. Unless you do strictly hollow forms. And then you still got the outside to contend with in the base. So. Keep your tools sharp. I've had people ask me when I go to sharpen a tool, if I say a demo or something, I'll sharpen a tool and they say, why did you sharpen that tool? It was still cutting nice. No, it was cutting nice, but I was having to start to put pressure on things. And when you start putting pressure on things, then you start making mistakes. Anything else?
Thanks,
How much time we got?